The great station of the Galactic Council floated in the silence of space, lit by the glow of a nearby star. Hundreds of ships from dozens of worlds gathered around it, docking one after another. The station was a symbol of unity, though everyone inside knew it was also a place of suspicion. Every species came with its own fears, its own pride, and its own grudges. When the human shuttle arrived, it was small compared to the vast ships of older empires. Some of the council guards looked at it with mild amusement. To them, humans were newcomers, barely a century into space travel. Many did not believe they deserved a place in the council at all. Still, the rules of membership had been clear. Humanity had fought for its place, and now it was here to stay. Inside the shuttle, Ethan Cole sat quietly. He was dressed in a dark suit that seemed too simple for such a grand occasion. His eyes scanned the docking bay as they approached. His face gave away little, and even his aide, Maya Brooks, could not guess what he was thinking. She had worked with him for years, and she knew he was not like other diplomats. Ethan spoke less, listened more, and carried a calm that sometimes made others uneasy. The shuttle touched down. The hatch opened, and a wave of cool air swept inside. Maya adjusted her notes nervously before stepping out. Ethan followed her, walking with slow, steady steps. There was no rush in him, no sign of excitement or pride. He walked as if this meeting was just another part of a long journey. Around them, the docking bay was busy with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had scaled skin that shimmered under the lights. Others had long limbs and thin faces, while a few were towering figures in armored suits. All of them wore clothing marked with symbols of their worlds. They watched the humans as they passed, some with curiosity, others with silent disapproval. One alien guard leaned toward another and muttered in a language Maya did not understand. Ethan's expression did not change, but his eyes flicked toward them for the briefest moment. The guards fell silent, as though caught doing something wrong. The council chamber was at the center of the station. It was a vast hall shaped like a circle, with raised platforms where each delegation sat. At the very heart of it stood a ring of light, glowing softly to remind everyone that decisions made here shaped the galaxy. Maya kept close to Ethan as they entered, her steps quick to match his calm stride. Delegates had already taken their places. The representatives of the Valari Empire sat in robes of deep crimson, their voices always sharp and impatient. They, Thalnary, tall beings with translucent skin, spoke in slow tones that made every word sound like a song. The Koran, who wore heavy exosuits, stood rather than sat, their glowing visors scanning the room. Each species carried an air of superiority, and none looked pleased to see the human delegation walk in. Ethan moved to the seat, signed to humanity, and settled down without a word. Maya arranged her notes beside him, trying to steady her breathing. She noticed the glances, the whispers, and the way some delegates leaned toward each other, already dismissing the humans. It was always like this. A voice rang through the chamber, amplified by hidden speakers. It belonged to the presiding elder, a being with a long silver crest running down its back. "We welcome the humans," the elder said, though the tone sounded more formal than warm. "You were late to the council, but now you sit among us. May your words be measured, and may they serve peace." Ethan gave a short nod, nothing more. Maya wondered if the elder had expected a speech, but Ethan rarely did what others expected. The meeting began. Discussions filled the chamber, voices overlapping as old disputes rose to the surface. Trade routes, border defenses, accusations of piracy. Every problem spilled into the air, and the council struggled to keep order. Ethan listened carefully, his hands folded, his eyes half closed as if he were resting. But Maya knew better. He never missed a detail. Now and then, a delegate would glance toward Ethan, perhaps hoping for a reaction. They got none. He was like stone, unmoved by noise or insult. Even when one delegate spoke of humanity as a child species playing among giants, Ethan did not stir. Maya felt her anger rise, but Ethan's calm presence kept her silent. Hours passed, and the chamber grew tense. Disagreements sharpened, voices rose, and guards shifted uneasily at the edges of the hall. Peace seemed far away. Maya leaned closer and whispered, "Do you think they will ever accept us?" Ethan's eyes opened, calm and steady. "Acceptance is not given," he said softly. "It is taken in time." There was something in his voice that made her shiver. It was not anger, nor pride. It was certainty, as if he had already seen the outcome of this long struggle. She wanted to ask more, but the chamber fell silent as alarms suddenly echoed through the station. The walls trembled with a deep vibration, and the glow at the center of the council flickered. Delegates looked around in alarm. Guards drew their weapons. Maya clutched her notes to her chest, her heart racing. Ethan did not move. He sat still, his expression unchanged, as if the chaos outside was something he had expected all along. "Would you like me to continue writing each of the next 7 parts in this same style, 800 words each, or should I draft all of them in outline first, and then expand one by one?" The alarms echoed through the council chamber like rolling thunder. Delegates shouted in confusion, their voices mixing into a storm of panic. Guards moved quickly, forming lines around their leaders, weapons raised toward the doors. The floor trembled again, as if something powerful struck the station from the outside. Maya Brooks clutched the side of the human platform, her papers scattering to the floor. She looked toward Ethan Cole, expecting some reaction, but he sat as still as before. His eyes were open, calm, almost cold. As he watched the chamber fall apart, the presiding elder raised his voice over the noise. "Remain in order. The station defenses will respond." But even the elder's voice shook, betraying fear. A sharp explosion rattled the ceiling above, shaking loose dust and fragments of metal. An armored guard of the Corin barked something through his speaker, his glowing visor flashing red. More voices joined, some calling for evacuation, others demanding answers. Maya turned to Ethan. "What's happening? An attack?" he said softly, his tone flat. "Planned, not random." His words made her stomach sink. The thought that someone had dared attack the Galactic Council itself seemed impossible. Yet Ethan spoke as though it was expected. The great doors at the far side of the chamber shook under heavy impact. Each strike rang like thunder, growing louder. The delegates fell back toward their seats. Guards prepared their weapons. The doors burst open with a blinding flash. Smoke and sparks filled the chamber. Figures stepped through, tall and armored, their helmets marked with jagged lines. Behind them, more rushed in, carrying rifles that glowed with charged energy. Raiders mercenaries allied with one of the outer empires. Their timing was perfect, their movements too precise to be chance. Chaos broke. Screams filled the chamber as delegates tried to flee. Some guards fought bravely, firing blasts of energy that lit the room, but the raiders kept pushing forward. Their leader, a massive figure with heavy armor and a scarred face visible under his helmet, stepped into the center. His voice was deep and cruel as he shouted, "The council falls today. The galaxy belongs to those with strength." Maya felt her breath catch. The raiders had come not only to kill, but to destroy the very symbol of unity. She looked at Ethan, waiting for him to react. He remained in his seat, hands folded, his expression unreadable. The alien leader pointed at the humans. "Even here, the weakest among us dares sit as equal. Humanity has no place in this council. Today, they fall first." Several raiders turned their weapons toward Ethan and Maya. Maya's chest tightened, fear rising like fire in her throat. She took a step back, but Ethan placed a hand lightly on the desk in front of him. Steady and unshaken dot around the chamber. The battle grew fiercer. The Thalnary sang sharp, vibrating tones that made the air shake, throwing some raiders off balance. The Valerie guards slashed with energy blades, their crimson robes flowing like fire. The Corrin moved like walking tanks, their heavy suits absorbing fire as they pushed forward. Still, the raiders pressed hard, numbers and planning on their side. Maya's heart pounded. She whispered, "We need to move. We need to get out." Ethan turned his head slightly toward her. "Stay close. Do not run." There was something in his voice, calm, steady, and heavy with certain teeth that froze her in place. He did not sound like a diplomat asking for safety. He sounded like a man who knew exactly what was coming. The raider leader stepped closer, sneering at Ethan. "Do you sit there in silence because you are afraid, human? Do you think calm eyes will save you from death?" Ethan finally rose from his chair. He was not taller than the raider, not stronger in appearance, but the air around him seemed to shift. He adjusted the cuffs of his suit jacket and looked directly at the towering warrior. His gaze was sharp, steady, and filled with something far colder than fear. "I do not need saving," Ethan said, his voice low but carrying through the chamber. The raider laughed, a deep and cruel sound. He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, one of his soldiers fell with a sharp cry. Maya's eyes widened as she saw the strike come not from any guard, but from Ethan's aide. Asterisk. Maya had moved with sudden speed, pulling a hidden blade from her sleeve. Her strike was fast, precise, and deadly. The raider crumpled to the floor before his companions even realized what had happened. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Delegates stared, shocked at the sight of the human aide. Small and unarmed, just moments ago, now standing ready with a weapon in her hand. The raider leader's smile faded. He narrowed his eyes at Ethan, so the humans hide wolves among lambs. Ethan stepped forward, each stride steady, his eyes never leaving the warlord's face. "You should not have come here," he said quietly. The words were not loud, not shouted, but they struck the air with the weight of final judgment. Maya stood at his side, blade steady, her breath calm now. For the first time, the chamber began to sense that humanity's diplomat was not what he seemed. The battle around them raged on, but within the circle of light at the center of the council, a different kind of silence grew. Delegates watched, raiders hesitated, and Ethan Cole stood tall, calm as ever. While danger pressed close from every side, the council chamber had turned into a battlefield. Smoke hung in the air, carrying the bitter scent of burned metal and scorched stone. The cries of alien voices echoed off the high walls as guards and raiders clashed. Sparks lit the shadows, and every strike seemed to shake the hall. Ethan Cole stood calmly in the middle of it all. His eyes studied the raiders as if they were pieces on a board. Maya Brooks stood close at his side, her blade glinting under the council lights. The raiders who had first aimed their weapons at her now hesitated, uncertain. It was no longer the picture of a helpless diplomat and his aide. Something darker and sharper had revealed itself. The raider leader growled. His voice was filled with contempt, but there was also a hint of unease. "You think one hidden knife will save you? This station is already ours." Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. "It is not yours. You've already made your mistake." Before the raider could answer, a fresh blast struck the chamber doors as more enemies stormed in. The guards of the council struggled to hold them back. Laser fire streaked across the air, cutting through pillars and shields. Delegates ducked behind their platforms, terrified. Maya moved first, faster than the raiders expected. She darted forward, her blade striking with precision. Another raider dropped, his weapon clattering to the floor. Ethan did not rush after her. He walked, every step measured, as if the chaos around him belonged to someone else. 2 raiders turned, their rifles on him, but before they fired, Ethan's hand slipped into his jacket. A small device clicked, and suddenly the rifles sparked, shorting out in their owner's hands. The raiders cursed in their harsh language, shaking their burned weapons. Ethan closed the device again and slipped it away, his calm never breaking. The alien delegates stared in shock. They had expected a human diplomat, fragile and naive. What they saw instead was a man who seemed prepared for every strike. The presiding elder shouted, "Defend the chamber, hold your ground." But his command sounded weaker now, his voice shaking with fear. The raider leader pointed at Ethan. "Kill him. Kill the human." 5 soldiers rushed forward, their heavy boots pounding across the floor. Maya moved to meet them, her blade flashing in smooth arcs. But she could not stop all of them at once. The first raider lunged at Ethan, raising a jagged knife. Ethan caught the raider's wrist with one hand. His grip was like iron, calm and unshaking. Without effort, he twisted, and the raider screamed as the weapon fell from his grasp. Ethan struck once, clean and precise, and the attacker crumpled to the ground. The other raiders faltered, but only for a moment. They surrounded him, moving like predators. Ethan shifted his stance, his suit jacket falling open just slightly. His eyes flicked from one to the other, reading every movement before it came. Maya's voice cut through the noise. "Ethan?" She spun, cutting down another raider, her breathing sharp. Blood green and thick spattered the council floor. Ethan answered by moving with sudden speed. His hand snapped forward, catching the barrel of a rifle and twisting it. Away, the weapon fired into the ceiling, scattering shards of stone. He turned the rifle back on its owner and pulled the trigger. The shot dropped the raider instantly. The fight was brutal, but short. When it ended, the 5 who had rushed Ethan lay broken around him. Maya stood at his side again, breathing hard, her blade dripping. For a moment, silence stretched across the chamber. Delegates peered from their hiding places, staring at the 2 humans in disbelief. These were not frightened newcomers. They were something else entirely. The raider leader's sneer hardened into a scowl. His massive frame loomed as he stepped forward, his armor gleaming with the glow of the battle. "You are no diplomat," he said, his tone almost respectful, yet heavy with hate. "You are death in disguise." Ethan's gaze did not waver. "I came for peace," he said simply, "but I am prepared for war." The words struck the room like a blow. Even the elder who presided over the council looked shaken. The other delegates whispered to one another in fear and awe. The raider leader roared and charged forward, his heavy boots cracking the stone floor. Ethan did not move until the last moment. He stepped aside, quick and smooth, letting the leader's strike crash into the council table. The sound of splitting metal rang through the chamber. Maya darted at the leader's side, slashing at the joint of his armor. The blade sparked, cutting deep, but the armor held firm. The leader swung backhanded, nearly striking her, but Ethan pulled her aside at the last moment. The blow smashed into the ground instead, leaving a crater. "Stay focused," Ethan said, quietly to her. His tone was calm, even as the giant loomed over them. The leader lifted his weapon again, rage burning in his eyes. The chamber shook with his roar, and the battle all around seemed to pause as both allies and enemies watched. Maya tightened her grip on her blade. Ethan stood tall, adjusting his jacket once more, his eyes locked on the towering figure. The air around him was tense, heavy. As if the outcome of the fight would decide more than just the battle, it would decide the place of humanity in the galaxy. The leader stepped forward, massive and unstoppable, while Ethan remained calm, his presence growing colder and sharper with every heartbeat. The council chamber, a place meant for peace, had become the stage for a fight that would be remembered forever. Asterisk, the Raider leader, towered over Ethan, his armor glowing with red lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. His massive weapon gleamed under the smoke-filled chamber lights, each edge sharp enough to slice through steel. Around them, the fighting had slowed as both sides turned to watch. The sight of the human diplomat standing calmly against a warlord had captured every eye. Maya Brooks held her blade ready, her body tense. She glanced at Ethan, but his face remained steady, his breathing even. There was no fear in him, only a cold focus that made her uneasy. She had seen him calm before, in meetings and intense negotiations, but this was something different. This was the calm of someone who had walked through battle many times before. The warlord raised his weapon high and brought it down with a roar. The strike shook the ground, stone cracking beneath its weight. Ethan sidestepped at the last instant, moving with speed that did not match his calm posture. The weapon smashed into the floor, sending shards of stone flying. Ethan did not strike back. He simply shifted his stance, his eyes locked on the warlord. "You fight with strength," he said quietly. "But strength alone is never enough." The warlord snarled, pulling his weapon free. He swung again, faster this time, his strikes heavy and merciless. Ethan slipped between them with practiced ease, his movements smooth and efficient. He was not wasting energy, not showing off. Every motion had purpose. Delegates gasped as they watched. Some had doubted humanity's place in the council. Others had mocked it. Now they sat frozen, realizing that the man they had dismissed as a weak diplomat was something else entirely. Maya moved in, striking at the warlord's side again, trying to find a weak point in the armor. Sparks flew, and a shallow cut appeared. But it was not enough. The warlord swatted at her, his huge arm nearly knocking her from her feet. She rolled back, breath sharp, but before the warlord could follow, Ethan stepped between them. The warlord sneered. "You hide behind tricks, human. You cannot win against true power." Ethan's expression did not change. "Power without control is nothing. You are already defeated. You just don't see it yet." The words made the warlord pause, his anger rising even higher. He roared again and lunged forward, his weapon slicing through the air. This time, Ethan did not dodge. He moved inside the strike, so close the weapon could not reach him. His hand shot out, striking the warlord's throat, where the armor left a narrow gap. The warlord staggered back, choking, his massive body shuddering from the precise blow. Gasps filled the chamber. No one had expected the human to strike with such accuracy. Ethan adjusted his jacket, his voice steady. "You brought war into a hall of peace. That mistake will end you." The warlord roared and charged again, but his movements were slower now, his breaths rough. Maya circled to the side, her blade ready. The two humans moved together, not as diplomat and aide, but as partners trained for battle. Ethan's calm precision guided each step, while Maya's speed cut through the gaps the warlord left open. Asterisk. Together they pressed him back. Each strike from Ethan was clean and sharp, aimed at weak joints in the armor. Each slash from Maya struck where his balance faltered. The warlord tried to overwhelm them with raw power, but his blows grew wilder. As frustration filled him, finally, Ethan slipped past another heavy swing and drove a strike into the side of the warlord's helmet. The metal cracked, sparks bursting from the impact. The warlord stumbled, falling to one knee. Maya rushed in and pressed her blade to his exposed throat. The chamber fell silent. The battle froze as every eye turned to the center. The raider leader, who had entered with confidence and thunder, now knelt before the calm human and his aide, Ethan. Looked down at him, his voice low but clear. You thought death was far from you? You were wrong. Death has been beside you from the moment you entered this chamber. The warlord glared up, his pride broken. His soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure whether to fight on or flee. Delegates whispered, fear and awe mixing in their voices. Ethan stepped back, giving the warlord a chance to see the truth. Leave. Tell those who sent you that humanity is not weak. Tell them we do not bow to threats. The warlord's jaw clenched. His pride would not let him surrender fully, but his defeat was clear. He growled a command to his soldiers, and slowly they began to retreat toward the shattered doors. Maya kept her blade ready until the last raider had left the chamber. Only then did she lower it, her breathing heavy. She turned to Ethan, her eyes filled with questions, but she could not find the words. Ethan stood tall, his jacket still neat despite the battle, his eyes calm. To the council, he was no longer just a diplomat. He had revealed the truth of what he was. A man shaped not only by words, but by shadows. By battles no one in that chamber could imagine. The presiding elder finally found his voice. Who are you, human? Ethan looked around the chamber, his gaze steady on each delegate who had doubted him. I am here for peace. But if you bring war, you will find that I have walked beside death all my life. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of his words. The delegates now understood. Humanity's place in the council had been questioned, but after this moment, none would ever forget the day the human diplomat stood against death and did not flinch. Asterisk, the chamber was quiet after the raiders left, though smoke still curled through the air and the floor was littered with debris. Guards and aides helped the wounded, and the delegates whispered in low voices. None of them could look at Ethan Cole in the same way again. Maya Brooks stood close to him, her blade finally tucked away, but her eyes kept returning to his calm face. She had known him for years, yet each time he revealed a part of himself. She realized how little she truly understood about him. The presiding elder, shaken but still holding his position, finally spoke. The raiders will return. They will not forgive this humiliation. We must decide what action the council will take. The words stirred the delegates into argument once again. Some demanded stronger defenses. Others accused rival species of secretly aiding the raiders. Accusations filled the air until it was hard to tell who was speaking for peace and who was calling for war. Through it all, Ethan said nothing. He sat back in his seat, his hands folded, his gaze distant. His calm presence seemed even heavier now, as though the fight had only pulled back a curtain hiding something much larger. Maya leaned closer, speaking in a low voice. You've done this before? Ethan turned his eyes to her, the faintest hint of something unreadable in his expression. Done what? Light like that? Moved like that? That wasn't training for diplomacy. That was something else. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked away, his gaze fixed on the distant glow of the chamber's center. Diplomats don't survive long unless they learn more than words. Maya's heart tightened at his answer. She wanted to ask more, but the memory of the way he had moved, the precision of every strike, made her hesitate. It was not the skill of someone who had merely learned for safety. It was the skill of someone who had lived in battle. As the council argued louder, Ethan's thoughts drifted far away from the present. Years ago, long before he had worn a diplomat's suit, he had been sent to places where no one else wanted to go. The galaxy was full of shadows, and humanity had been small and fragile then. Enemies tested Earth at every border. Raiders tried to break colonies. and hidden powers threatened to snuff out humanity before it could rise. Ethan had been chosen for the missions that were never written down. He remembered the frozen station on the edge of the Valerie frontier, where he had slipped through the dark to stop a weapon that could have ended a colony before it even began. He remembered the desert moon, where he had watched enemy commanders from the shadows, striking only when the moment was perfect. He remembered the faces of those who had never seen him coming. He had walked in silence, done what needed to be done, and then disappeared as if he had never been there at all. The records never mentioned his name, but the missions had shaped the path of humanity. Every colony that survived, every threat that had fallen quietly into dust, was part of the long shadow he carried with him. Maya's voice brought him back to the present. Why diplomacy? After all of that, why sit here in chambers like this? Ethan looked at her, his expression steady. Because peace is harder. Anyone can wage war. Few can keep the peace after it's won. Words can save more lives than blades if spoken at the right time. Maya searched his face, but she saw no pride, no regret, only certainty. It unsettled her more than the battle itself. Across the chamber, some of the alien delegates began to look at Ethan differently. The Thalnari representative, tall and translucent, leaned forward with an expression of curiosity. Your people claim to be seekers of peace, yet you fight like one born of war. Which is truth? Ethan's reply was calm. Both. We fight so we may live in peace. We do not seek war, but if it comes, we will not bow. The answer spread whispers through the chamber. Some nodded in respect, others frowned in unease. Humanity had always been dismissed as too new, too young. Now they saw something else. People who carried both peace and death in their hands. Maya felt the weight of silence that followed. She had always thought of Ethan as quiet and distant. But now she saw the truth. He was a man who had lived with shadows, who had seen the darkest parts of war, and who carried that experience into every word he spoke. The council session broke for a pause, guards ushering the delegates to safer chambers while repairs began. Maya walked with Ethan through the damaged hall, the floor stained and scarred from battle. She could not hold back her question any longer. Do you ever regret it? The things you've done? Ethan slowed his steps, his eyes drifting across the broken stone. Regret is for those who had a choice. I did what was needed. Others lived because I did not hesitate. That is enough. Maya fell silent, her thoughts heavy. She realized that the man the galaxy now called a diplomat was someone who had already carried the weight of countless lives on his shoulders. As they left the chamber, the hum of the station's alarms still echoed faintly. Somewhere beyond the walls, more raiders waited. The council would not find peace quickly, and Ethan knew it. His calm face revealed little, but deep inside he carried the truth. War was never far. And when it came, he would be ready again. The station had not fallen silent for long. Alarms still wailed in the distance, sharp and unrelenting, carrying warnings that danger was not yet over. The raiders might have been pushed from the chamber, but their presence still lingered in the station's halls. The council's guards hurried to seal the doors, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before another wave struck. Ethan Cole walked with slow, steady steps as the delegates were led to a safer wing of the station. Maya Brooks stayed close to him, her eyes sharp, her body tense. She carried no papers now, only the blade she had revealed during the battle. For the first time since she had met Ethan, she realized she was not only his aide. She was his partner, and he trusted her to be more than a shadow at his side. Some of the delegates looked at the humans with caution, others with open respect. Whispers followed them through the hall, words like dangerous and unpredictable. Yet none dared confront Ethan directly. His calm presence weighed heavier than fear. When they reached a smaller chamber guarded by soldiers, The presiding elder turned to Ethan. "This station cannot withstand a full assault. Our defenses are weak and our fleets are too far away. What would your people do, human?" Ethan met the elder's eyes without hesitation. "We would not wait to be hunted room by room. We would strike first." The words stirred the delegates into more arguments. Some accused him of recklessness. Others demanded plans for retreat. But Ethan did not join their noise. He looked too. Maya Ann spoke softly, almost like he was talking only to her. "It is time." Maya nodded, pulling a small communicator from her belt. She tapped in a code, one that no one else in the chamber understood. A faint green light blinked, then steadied. Ethan gave the smallest of smiles, though his eyes remained cold. Moments later, distant explosions echoed through the station, not from raiders, but from hidden charges set deep within the corridors. The council guards tensed, unsure what had happened. Ethan explained in his steady voice. Asterisk. Human security teams were stationed here before the meeting began. They are striking at the raiders now. The delegates stared at him, shocked. One shouted, "You brought soldiers into the council." "This is a violation of trust." Ethan's reply was calm, firm. "I brought protection. You believed peace could be held without defense." I knew better. Maya's communicator came to life with a burst of static, then a voice. "Sector 3 clear. Raiders falling back. Casualties on our side, minimal." Ethan gave a short nod. "Move to Sector 5. Seal it off. Do not let them regroup." He closed the line, then turned back to the council. "Your station will not fall tonight." Humanity came prepared. The room was silent, filled with the weight of his words. Delegates who had doubted humans were now forced to see them as more than newcomers. The small species from a distant world. It shown foresight that the great powers had not. The fight in the station grew louder again. The sounds of weapons echoing through the walls. Ethan straightened his jacket and looked at Maya. "It's time we join them." Maya hesitated. "You mean out there? In the halls?" "Yes." His voice carried no doubt. "Leadership is not only words spoken in safety. It is presence where the danger is greatest. Come." Together, they left the chamber despite the elder's protests. The council guards followed reluctantly, uncertain whether to stop him or obey. Ethan's steady stride gave them little choice. The halls outside were dark, the lights flickering from damage. Smoke curled along the ceiling, and the sharp smell of burned circuits filled the air. They passed Bodhi's council guards, raiders. Civilians caught in crossfire. Maya's jaw tightened, but she did not look away. Ethan walked as though he had seen it all before. At a junction, human soldiers waited in ambush. Their rifles gleamed in the dim light, their faces grim. They saluted Ethan without a word, their respect clear. He gave them quick orders, his voice sharp and precise, each instruction fitting together like pieces of a larger plan. When the next group of raiders rushed through the hall, they met not confusion, but a wall of fire. Human soldiers struck from cover, and Maya moved with them, her blade flashing when enemies came too close. Ethan stood at the center, directing each movement, adjusting with calm precision. The raiders faltered. Their surprise was broken. Their advantage gone. For the first time since the attack began, the council's defenders pushed forward instead of falling back. Ethan's presence was like an anchor in the storm. Soldiers moved with confidence under his orders, and even alien guards, who had once doubted humanity, now fought at his side. His calm voice cut through the chaos, guiding them like a commander who had walked these paths 1,000 times before. As the last raider of the wave fell, silence filled the hall. Smoke drifted past the broken lights, and the floor was littered. With scorched armor, Maya leaned against the wall, catching her breath, her blade still in her hand. She looked at Ethan, her voice quiet, but filled with awe. "You planned this from the beginning." Ethan adjusted his cuffs, his expression steady. Preparation is the difference between survival and defeat. She studied him for a moment, then asked, "And what happens when the council asks why you brought soldiers here without telling them?" He glanced down the hall where his soldiers regrouped, their rifles ready for the next fight. "Then I will tell them the truth. That peace without strength is only an invitation to war." Beyond the hall, the alarms still wailed, and the battle was not yet finished. But for the first time since the attack began, the defenders felt hope. Ethan Cole had taken command, and wherever he walked, the tide began to turn. The station shook as another explosion tore through one of the outer wings. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the walls rattled with each distant impact. The raiders had not given up. They were regrouping, gathering for a final push that would decide the fate of the council and the station itself. Ethan Cole walked steadily through the damaged corridors, his boots crunching against broken glass and metal fragments. His soldiers moved with him, rifles ready, eyes sharp. Maya Brooks stayed close at his side, her blade drawn, her expression calm but tense. She had fought before, but never had she felt a battle so heavy with meaning. They turned a corner and found survivors, civilians, and guards huddled in fear. Some of them looked up when they saw the humans, their eyes filled with both relief and doubt. A young guard spoke first. "They are coming again. We cannot stop them." Ethan studied the group, then spoke with quiet strength. "You can stop them, but only if you stand now. Fear will not protect you. Action will." The guard hesitated, then straightened. Others followed, rising slowly, their fear still there, but mixed with something else. Ethan's voice carried weight, as though he had spoken such words many times before. He did not ask them to believe. He gave them reason to fight. As they moved deeper into the station, gunfire echoed closer. Ethan raised his hand, signaling silence. His soldiers spread out, forming lines, preparing for contact. Through the smoke and haze, dark shapes appeared, raiders advancing, their weapons glowing. At their center walked a tall figure, armored in black steel, his steps heavy and unyielding. Maya's breath caught when she saw him. That must be their leader. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had known this moment would come. The raider leader walked with the certainty of a conqueror, his troops flanking him with perfect order. He carried no visible fear, only confidence that the station would soon belong to him. The battle began with a roar. Energy bolts flashed down the corridor, cutting into walls and shields. Human soldiers fired back, their weapons sharp and precise. Maya dashed forward, her blade striking down an enemy who broke the line. The corridor shook with fire and screams, but Ethan did not move like the others. He stood at the center, watching, waiting. His presence was steady, his calm unnerving. The raider leader finally stepped forward, pushing through the fire as if the bullets meant nothing. His voice boomed across the hall. "Surrender this place. No fleet will come to save you. Your fight is already lost." Ethan answered with a voice that was quiet but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "You miscalculated." The leader stopped, staring at him. His soldiers hesitated, confused by the man who stood so calmly under fire. Ethan did not raise a weapon. He did not need to. His eyes carried the weight of something deeper than threats. Maya stepped closer, her blade ready, but Ethan raised his hand. "Not yet," he said softly. The leader gave a harsh laugh. "One human diplomat. This who they send to face me." Ethan began to walk forward, step by step, past the broken glass and sparks. The soldiers on both sides slowed, watching him. His calm was unnatural, almost frightening. He stopped a few paces from the raider leader and met his gaze without fear. "You brought war into a place of peace, Ethan said. You thought this council weak. You thought humanity untested. But you forgot one truth. The leader tilted his head, his armored mask reflecting the flickering lights. And what truth is? That? Ethan's eyes were cold, his voice steady. Death walks with us. The silence after his words was heavier than any gunfire. The raiders shifted uneasily, their leader's confidence faltering for the first time. The human soldiers raised their weapons again, their courage sharpened by Ethan's words. Even? The alien guards, once doubtful, looked at him with something close to awe. The leader snarled, lifting his massive blade. Then let us see whose death arrives first. The fight that followed was brutal. Raiders charged, but the defenders held their ground. Ethan did not step back. He guided his people with sharp orders, each command turning chaos into order. Maya fought at his side, her blade clashing with armored raiders, her movements swift and precise. The leader pushed through the line, striking with strength that shook the corridor. Maya blocked one blow, nearly thrown to the ground by its force. Before the leader could strike again, Ethan moved. He stepped between them, his hand catching the raider's weapon in a sudden, impossible motion. For a moment, it seemed unreal. Diplomat stopping the strike of a warlord. The raider leader stared into Ethan's eyes and saw no fear, no hesitation. He saw only certainty, as if the man before him had already chosen the outcome. With one motion, Ethan twisted the weapon aside and drove his own strike forward. It was not a sword, not a gun, but a small hidden blade, sharp and simple. It slipped past the leader's armor and struck deep. The corridor froze. Raiders watched as their leader stumbled, his weapon falling from his hand. Ethan stood firm, holding the man as he sank to his knees. Your war ends here, Ethan said softly. The leader collapsed, his body heavy against the floor. The remaining raiders faltered, their will broken. Some fled into the smoke, others dropped their weapons. The station was still damaged, the alarms still screaming, but the tide had shifted. The enemy had lost their center. Maya looked at Ethan, her chest rising with heavy breaths. You killed him. Ethan met her eyes, his expression calm. He chose his fate. I only delivered it. The corridor was filled with silence again, broken only by the distant hum of alarms. The council's defenders stood straighter now, their fear replaced with strength. For the first time, they saw humanity not as newcomers, but as something far older. Something they could not yet measure. Ethan Cole adjusted his jacket and looked down the smoke-filled hall. It is not finished yet, but now they know what walks among them. The smoke slowly cleared from the broken corridors, and silence fell over the station. The sounds of gunfire, shouting, and explosions faded until only the faint hum of damaged systems remained. Bodies of raiders and defenders lay scattered across the floor, while sparks jumped from shattered panels. The battle was over, but the station carried scars that would never be forgotten. Ethan Cole stood in the center of the wreckage, calm as always. His soldiers gathered near him, some wounded, some exhausted, but still ready if the fight returned. Maya Brooks wiped the blood from her blade and sheathed it, her chest still rising with heavy breaths. She turned to Ethan, searching his face for any sign of what he was thinking. But as always, his expression gave nothing away. Council guards moved among the survivors, helping the injured and carrying away those who had fallen. Some of them kept glancing at Ethan, their eyes filled with questions they dared not ask. They had seen him face the raider leader, and they had seen the impossible calm with which he ended the fight. To them, he was not just a diplomat. He was something more. Finally, the doors to the great chamber opened again. The surviving council members were led inside by their aides, their steps slow and heavy. Their robes were torn, their faces pale from fear and exhaustion, but they were alive. They stopped when they saw Ethan waiting for them, the eldest counselor. A tall being with silver skin and deep-set eyes spoke first. "The station still stands. The attackers are broken. We owe this to you and your people." Ethan gave a small nod. "You owe it to those who stood and fought. Humanity does not claim this victory alone." The counselor's gaze lingered on him, and yet, "Without you, we would not be standing here. We misjudged your people. We thought you too young, too reckless for this council. Today you showed us a truth we cannot ignore." The chamber grew quiet. Every guard, every aide, every survivor turned their eyes toward Ethan. He stood still, his hands folded behind his back, as though waiting for a judgment that had already been written. Another counselor, shorter and robed in dark blue, spoke with unease in his voice. "What we saw today, is this what all humans carry? This fire?" Maya stepped forward, unable to hold back her words. "What you saw was courage. What you saw was humanity refusing to be broken. We fight when others would fall. That is what makes us strong." The counselor looked at her with uncertainty, but he could not deny the truth of her words. The eldest counselor returned his gaze to Ethan. "You spoke of death walking with you? Tell me, human, were those only words, meant to frighten your enemy? Or is that what you truly believe?" Ethan's eyes were steady, his voice even. "I do not believe. I know. Where humanity walks, death is never far behind. It is not because we seek it, but because we have lived beside it longer than most can imagine. We do not fear it. We understand it, and that is why we endure." The chamber was silent again, the weight of his words pressing against every ear. The counselors shifted uneasily, yet none spoke against him. They had seen proof with their own eyes. After a long pause, the eldest counselor bowed his head. "Then humanity has earned its place. From this day forward, your people are not merely guests of this council. You are protectors, allies, and perhaps reminders of the strength that peace alone cannot give." The other counselors nodded slowly, some with reluctance, others with respect. The decision was made. Humanity had stepped into the center of Galactic politics, not as strangers, but as a force that none could deny. Maya felt a rush of pride, though she kept her face steady. She glanced at Ethan, expecting to see some sign of triumph, but he showed none. He only looked at the council with the same calm he had carried since the moment he arrived. When the meeting ended, the survivors began to rebuild what they could. Guards secured the halls, workers restored the power systems, and medics tended to the wounded. Life returned to the station, though the shadows of the battle remained. Later, as the station drifted quietly in orbit, Maya found Ethan standing, alone near a wide viewport. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, silent and cold. She walked to his side and studied his profile. The way his eyes never blinked when he looked at the void. "You did it," she said softly. "You saved them all. And now the council sees us differently. Humanity will never be ignored again." Ethan did not turn his head. This was only one battle. There will be more. The galaxy is wide, and not all will welcome what we bring. Maya tilted her head. "Do you ever feel proud of what you've done?" Ethan was quiet for a moment before he answered. "Pride is for those who seek reward. I seek only to do what must be done. That is enough." Maya studied him, then gave a faint smile. "Then maybe that is what makes you dangerous. Not the weapons, not the battles, but that calm, like you already know how it ends. Ethan finally turned to look at her, his eyes steady, his voice low. I do know, 'cause I have walked with death long enough to know it always follows. Stars outside shimmered with silent light. The station still bore the marks of war, but it stood, alive and unbroken. And within it, humanity had taken its place, not as the weakest, but as the most dangerous of them all. Ethan Cole looked once more at the endless sky. The galaxy now understood a truth it had tried to ignore. Humanity had arrived, and with it, the shadow of death itself. Asterisk.